The Syracuse football team has dropped 3 straight games, and the competition doesn't get any easier today. Heisman contender and quarterback Haynes King has led 7th-ranked Georgia Tech to a 7-0 start and a top spot in the ACC. The Orange travel down to Atlanta for the 2nd time this year. Syracuse can find its footing against a buzzing Yellow Jackets squad. We'll get you set for SU and GT here on Cuse Countdown next.
Welcome into Cuse Countdown. Nico Horning, Jish, Sokolsky, Alex Burstein. Happy to be with you here on this Saturday matinee between Syracuse and 7th-ranked Georgia Tech. The Orange, they've dropped 3 straight games, and today doesn't get any easier, guys. Toughest test of the season against Georgia Tech. We'll get into this matchup, but last time out, the Cuse had a really strong opportunity to stop the bleeding at home against Pitt, and then they fail to do that, and they get blown out. What are some of the key takeaways, Jish, at this point in the season after that bad loss for Syracuse?
I mean, to me, Nico, it seems like this team is just allergic to momentum. Pittsburgh didn't play a good game at all. They couldn't really run the ball. They couldn't throw the ball. They threw a bunch of picks, but Syracuse just could not capitalize. As soon as you put the ball into Ricky Collins' hands, bad things happen. Even an onside kick late in the game by Jaden O, Syracuse could not capitalize on maybe Pitt's worst game of the year. It really is just so worrying for the Orange that they could not get this one done.
Yeah, my favorite quote from the Georgia Tech press conference was, our kids weren't even excited after they came to the locker room. They weren't even happy after the win. That's how low of a standard Syracuse has fallen to, where if you're not blowing them out, it's considered a bad win. But yeah, I mean, Mason Heinschel, he was a young quarterback. He didn't look great in that game, but even with that, Syracuse just could not perform. It was 7-7 in the first quarter. After that, the Orange just fell off.
3 interceptions for Ricky Collins in that game as well. So you had Steve Angeli to open up the year. He's playing great, matching Cal McCord from last year, and then Ricky Collins took over. He hasn't done much. They brought Luke Carney in for a couple drives in that last game, and after the game, Fran Brown had a very interesting response to both of his backup QB's comfortability.
Not much. I mean, Ricky's, it's not like we don't have a large menu for Ricky either. Not much. We're in the developmental point of it, right? When it comes to the young quarterbacks and the things of that nature. So there's a lot that we're trying to do and trying to get rolling, and we'll get it back. You know, it'll work. It just takes time. It's a process.
We're in the middle of October, and that's what the head coach is saying?
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
It's crazy.
There's no excuses for that. I mean, I don't get how that even gets to that point. Yes, you have a backup quarterback, but at this point, Ricky Collins has been the guy for a while now. Even Luke Carney.
Ricky Collins has been here since December. How is there not a big enough menu? I get he was the scout team quarterback at LSU, but you thought he was going to be the starting quarterback coming into the offseason. Did you not go over any of the menu? Like, what's going on? I think really, Alex, they got to take the training wheels off of Luke Carney, and they have to do it soon. The fans are behind Luke Carney. They're not really behind Ricky Collins anymore. They have to just go all out. I kind of trust Luke Carney's natural ability more. I think he's faster. I think he's more accurate. All we saw from him were 2 designed rollouts on his pass attempts. I mean, listen, why not give the kid a shot?
Okay, but Jish, you're forgetting this is the number 7 team in the nation, Georgia Tech. That's when you want to take the training wheels off. This is a Georgia Tech team that has terrorized quarterbacks, that is going to hang over 30 points against the Syracuse defense. And you want to put a true freshman in whose best experience has been at the prep level. Luke Carney didn't look great last week. Yes, you can take the training wheels off eventually, but how about you do it next week against a UNC team that's unranked, that has been struggling? Why are you going to do that against a top 10 team in the nation?
It's not like Ricky Collins has been this experienced, poised quarterback that's given you just not enough. He's not giving you anything. He's basically a freshman too. You're taking as much of a risk by putting Ricky Collins out there as you would by putting Luke Carney out there, Nico.
Well, the quarterback position continues to be in shambles. One bright spot, though, was the front 7 for Syracuse in that game against Pitt, something that Fran Brown was very happy about. And Jish, I'll go back to you. Who has been standing out at that defensive spot for Syracuse? Because that has been the lone really area that the Orange have been good at.
Well, I mean, after a 3-sack performance last week, it's got to be Kevin Jobody, right? I mean, this guy's been here for 4 years, and all of a sudden he's finally making noise. I know that Syracuse brought in Dr. Blitz, Don Brown this week. I think that really helped. 7 sacks in the Pitt game. Kevin Jobody's really been standing out to me. David Reese, the senior leadership, as well, the super senior leadership. I think that they both have done a good job collapsing pockets and clogging run lanes, especially for quarterbacks that try to improvise and get out of the pocket like the true freshman Mason Heinschel last week.
I feel like we're reading a comic book with Dr. Blitz coming in, but he's an experienced coach, and maybe that's what the Syracuse team did. A great nickname. And if you're looking at the guys who have stepped up, the one who's really stood out to me is Jamie Tremble. And Fran Brown is a really good recruiter. He's trying to prove that he's a really good coach. And arguably the best decision he's made this season is taking Jamie Tremble, who was an offensive recruit for Dino Babers, and moving him to the defensive side of things. Jamie Tremble has looked really good. It was originally against the bad teams to start off the season, had a non-con sack, but he stepped up last week against Pitt. And Jamie Tremble, he's one of the better defenders on this team.
Maybe Syracuse can take some of that defense, some of getting to the quarterback into the road ahead, which remains very tough. Not only Georgia Tech today, the 7th best team in the country, but plenty of ranked opponents ahead. 5 games left for the Orange. We'll break this down, right? 3 of the 5 opponents are top 15 opponents, and then 3 of the next 4 games are on the road. The season's got to be cooked. The season's got to be cooked, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, it is. You have 5 games, and the most you could win is 2, because you're not beating a ranked team on the road, and they're all in the top 20, and they're all really, really good. You look at Georgia Tech, top 10. You look at Miami. They lost last week to Louisville, but they were a top 5 team in the nation. And then Notre Dame on the road right before Thanksgiving. You're not beating the Fighting Irish. Sure, you may have a chance against UNC and Boston College, but Jish, this team is not going bowling.
So, Alex, I think you and I both agree the season's over. So why not roll the dice then? Why not give Luke Carty that opportunity to maybe resurrect the season? Because Ricky Collins isn't beating Georgia Tech. I'll tell you that much. He's not beating Notre Dame, and he's not beating Miami. You maybe have a shot with UNC. If that game is a loss, then this season is officially over. I mean, right now it's on death row, but that would be the kill shot. Why not give Luke Carty a shot when you know the season's basically in the tubes?
I'd rather Syracuse lose by 30 points with a redshirt sophomore than 60 points.
You might be the first person to say I'd rather Syracuse lose by 30 points. That's on camera, by the way. Alex Burstein says Syracuse might lose by 30, and he'd rather that.
I don't know, guys. A win's a win, and if you're losing by 30, I don't know if that's the right move if it got to that point. Carney might be the option there, so we'll see what happens going forward. As far as what's coming up, Andrew Della Piana, who's down in Atlanta, joins us live. Coming up next, we'll talk to him as we preview Syracuse and Georgia Tech.
If you love them enough to crawl into a play place to get them to come down, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Back here on Cuse Countdown, Syracuse heads down to Atlanta for the 2nd time this season. A loss to Tennessee to open up the year. Maybe they can respond against arguably a tougher team, Georgia Tech, number 7 in the nation. And we are joined by Andrew Della Piana, who is coming in from Atlanta, the city of ATL. There he is, ADP. What a good look from him. Andrew, what does SU have to do defensively to have a chance in this game? What do you want to see from them?
Hey, thanks so much, guys. It's an interesting situation right now for the Syracuse offense where Ricky Collins has really struggled, just 11 points per game compared to Steve Angeli, who this offense was putting up 38 points per game under. Look, it feels pretty simple, right? You have to keep it simple against a pretty solid Georgia Tech defense where a lot of the openness of the field is going to come in the shorter half. Syracuse's offense has been trying to stretch the ball down the field a whole lot, especially when you have Jeff Nixon's offense that runs very pro style, likes to move from sideline to sideline. That really can't be the case with Ricky Collins anymore. The numbers have really shown it all. 5 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. I mean, look what he did against Pitt last weekend on the first play downfield where he threw an interception. Pitt goes down the field and scores and take a 7-0 lead. Ricky Collins really has to keep this game simple if he wants to give Syracuse a chance in this one.
Thanks for taking the time. I don't know your schedule. I know you're a busy guy. Now, this is a Georgia Tech team that was pretty bad there for about a decade. Now they're finally back. I got to know, what's the environment now at Bobby Dodd Stadium with the number 7 team in the country, Georgia Tech? Many thought that wouldn't happen.
Well, you can feel a buzz in the air. No real pun intended there, because these fans have showed up and showed out for this Georgia Tech team that has climbed its highest in-season ranking in 16 years. Look, guys, this is a fan base that has been waiting a long time for this under Brett Key to get to the 7-0 record, being number 7 in the country. Me and our photog, Adam Hipsky, were walking around campus a little bit earlier today, and this place was looking phenomenal. Fraternities, sororities packed out outside of Bobby Dodd Stadium. This place just fills over 51,000 people. I expect every single seat in this house to be filled, and should be a phenomenal crowd for today's game, despite maybe a little bit earlier than most college football fans would like.
Andrew, thanks for joining us. Sounds like a great atmosphere. We've talked about everything that GT does good. However, they do give up more rushing yards than any team in the ACC. What can SU do to take advantage of that?
Well, you mentioned it. This Georgia Tech run defense has been really bad this season, the worst in the ACC. So it really feels like that's the only facet in today's game the Orange can take advantage. Yasin Willis only had 13 carries last week against Pitt for 16 yards. The dynamic of this offense has really changed now with Ricky Collins under center. But what happened to the first game of the season where Yasin Willis got north of 20 carries, 3 touchdowns, nearly 100 yards? They basically got rid of that part of their game that they need to get back to. This defense is really going to give them a lot of room on the offensive line, but don't forget, Austin Collins, the starting center for Syracuse, out for today's game after an injury he suffered against Pitt last weekend. Yasin Willis is going to have to be the focal point of this offense, not just today, but going forward, to give Syracuse a chance in this ball game, guys.
All right, Andrew, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see if Yasin and Ricky can get going today. If the game turns into a blowout, I wouldn't be surprised if you go look at the whale sharks at the Georgia Aquarium down there in Atlanta. All right, coming up next, Georgia Tech, number 7 for a reason. We'll show you why GT has had so much early season success as we'll dive into the Yellow Jackets on the other side. All right, back here in our CitrusTV studios, Nico Horning, Jish, Sokolsky, and Alex Burstein. Happy to be with you guys here on this Saturday. Georgia Tech, number 7 for a reason. One of the 6 remaining undefeated teams in college football. They also have their highest ranking since the last AP poll of 2014. A lot is going right for them, but Syracuse put up a good fight against Georgia Tech last year at the Dome. Georgia Tech was ranked 24th at the time, and that was really the first big win from Fran Brown. And Jish, what a turnaround of momentum really from that point to what we're at now for Syracuse?
I mean, I kind of look at the narratives going into that last game against GT and the ones this year, and they're pretty similar. Georgia Tech really hot after kind of going on this hot streak. The run offense is incredible, and people said Syracuse couldn't stop it last year, and Fran Brown and the Orange proved otherwise. But I mean, look at who's throwing that ball. That's Kyle McCord to Trevor Pena. Neither of those guys are here anymore. It was a statement win. I think this is really when people started taking Fran Brown seriously, although Haynes King did keep it a ball game close at the end there. This was a great coaching performance from Fran Brown. This really showed the Orange were legit last year, and it just goes to show me, Alex, that really anything can happen when these two teams match up, I guess.
I guess, but you look at who performed in that game, I'll give you 5 names. Kyle McCord, Trevor Pena, LaQuint Allen, Fadil Diggs, Rondé Gadsden. What do they have in common?
The NFL.
None of them are here at Syracuse anymore. And you look at the 2 guys on your screen for Georgia Tech, Haynes King and Jamal Haynes. They are the 2 leading rushers for this Georgia Tech squad. They are still here. The Georgia Tech offense had a year to adjust and now has a year to be dominant. Syracuse had their dominant year in 2024. Now in 2025, the offense has taken a big dip down.
Well, that's the thing with Georgia Tech is that they have a lot of the same returning players as last year, and that's part of the reason why they've had so much success and continue to be at the top. And Alex, I asked you kind of answered it, but what else has Georgia Tech provided this year to make them so relevant, building on what they had from last season?
Well, we talk about the cardiac Cuse. It might be the cardiac Yellow Jackets. 7-0 on the season, but 4 of those games have been by single digits, and they know how to win games, which is really important for these top 10 teams. But the defense has struggled at times this year, and they've given up some big point totals to games, and they really only have one marquee win on the season. It came against Clemson at the time, who was top 15. But, I mean, we saw it firsthand. Syracuse beat Clemson, and Syracuse isn't going to make a bowl game, so they don't really have a great win on the season. But this Georgia Tech team has found ways to win games in a large part because of this offense. They have 3 guys who can really rush the ball, led by their quarterback, Haynes King. And when you have a quarterback as dynamic as him, it really works.
Well, first of all, Alex, I think we need a better name than the cardiac Yellow Jackets. And second of all, I disagree. This sounds like you're just box score watching here. This is a Georgia Tech team that has won comfortably. Maybe not by the most margin of victory. They haven't really blown a team out, but I don't think you need to win comfortably. This is a Georgia Tech team coached by Brent Key that dominates in the trenches. The offensive line is one of the best in the nation. Only 3 sacks allowed all year long. They've kept Haynes King clean when he tries to throw the ball, but really that opens up the lane for the run game. Georgia Tech can run the ball really on any team in the country. 21 rushing touchdowns on the year. Sure, they aren't blowing teams out, but that's just not their brand of football. They're going to grind you down. They're going to bend but won't break in the red zone. They have the 14th ranked red zone defense in the entire nation. So yeah, they're going to let you run on them a little bit. They're going to let you take your yards, but it's the team at the end of the day that has the most points that wins the football game, and Georgia Tech all year long has had more points than the opponent, and they've been doing so comfortably.
They have, but that leads me to a question for both of you guys. Does the schedule portray what Georgia Tech has done so far this season, or do you think they're better than the schedule, even if they have played a couple more ranked opponents?
I mean, I think they are a really good team, and they have the pieces to beat probably anyone in the nation. It's just what's going to happen when you actually play them. What's going to happen when it's late November? We saw it last year when they played against Georgia and went to
7
overtimes. Exactly. So
Crazy
they
game.
will get battle tested. They will play good teams as the season moves forward, but they have to win those games, because if you aren't winning those games, it's a bad sign. So they're going to probably be in the ACC championship. They're going to be tested, and if they can win just 1 or 2 big games, they'll be in the college football
And I mean,
playoffs.
they've had 1 ranked win over Clemson, but they've also beat a good Duke team that's a great passing offense, and they beat a Wake Forest team, came back from down 17. They're now 4-2. That's not a bad Wake Forest team in terms of the ACC. They're not necessarily a good team, Nico, but this is a Georgia Tech team that just consistently gets it done in different ways, whether by bleeding you out with the run game or by coming back and winning close ones. I like this Georgia Tech team to really win almost any game they play in.
Or one player that does multiple things for the offense and has really been a big reason why Georgia Tech has been so dominant this year. Haynes King, dual threat quarterback. I think this guy's entered the Heisman conversation. And Jish, would you agree with that statement, or is he right around there?
Yeah, I'd say he's in the Heisman conversation. He's kind of this Heisman dark horse, but I think he has a shot. He probably won't win it, but this is a guy who can beat you with his arm, but averages under 200 yards per game. What he really beats you with, Alex, and we both know this, is with his legs. 4 games of over 100 rushing yards. He provides a dynamic attack to this Georgia Tech offense that really I don't think many other quarterbacks could provide. He's a dual threat that can really do it all.
Well, Jish, I'm not actually sure he can beat you with his arm. He hasn't proven that a ton this season. There's a couple receivers who have had big games, but when you're able to run like that, he's like a Lamar Jackson type quarterback who can throw the football, but really, really dominant on the ground. It's 1 games for Georgia Tech last year. It's 1 games for them this year, and he's just so good at getting into the end zone. 14 total touchdowns on the year. He's probably going to surpass his total from last season, and a lot of those, 10 of them have been with his legs. That's not something you see out of a lot of quarterbacks.
And he doesn't turn the ball over either. You see the 1 interception there, that's what I'm looking at. If you can maintain time of possession and win the turnover battle, any coach you ask, those are the 2 things that are going to win you football games. Guess what? Haynes King extends drives with his legs, doesn't turn the ball over. This is why he's a bona fide stud at quarterback. He's scoring with his legs. Only 4 of those total touchdowns have been through the air. That's 10 touchdowns on the ground. Unheard of for a quarterback to be leading this dominant rushing attack. Again, it really starts with that O-line for me.
Ricky Collins could learn a thing or 2 from how few turnovers this Georgia Tech offense has. Well, we've talked a lot about what Georgia Tech is good at, but let's take a look in a second about what's so good.
Well, and one of the reasons why is it's a tale of 2 tales on the gridiron in today's marquee matchup. You have Georgia Tech, who has the 2nd best rushing attack in the ACC behind Florida State, and then on the flip side, Syracuse gives up the 2nd most yards on the ground in the conference, behind, funny enough, Georgia Tech. So, Alex, what stands out about Georgia Tech's rushing attack going into today?
Yeah, well, we've talked mainly about Haynes King and Jamal Haynes, who are the top 2 rushers, but they have another guy who's really good, Malachi Hosley. Let's take a look at one of his touchdowns from earlier this season against Virginia Tech. Hosley is a transfer from Penn, so he has that brain, and he shows it off right here with that zigzag motion. He knows not only how to move vertically, but also horizontally, and we'll take a look at this in slower motion. Takes the snap, he's going to the outside, sees that, commits to the inside, going back and forth, and then really takes over in these last 5 yards, drags his defenders into the end zone. That's a guy who has both speed and strength, and that is so huge to be a good running back.
And Alex, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the leading rusher, Haynes King. We talked about him. Now let's show you. A lot of this is play call, play design. Look at this offensive line. Fake toss. He has a little hole to go through, and he absolutely rips it up the seam. We're going to take another look at this and look at this offensive line. You're going to have this guard pulling. This center does a good job stepping, sealing. This left tackle seals. That's a little hole, but you see the burst of Haynes King. This is great run block design from Brent Key and even better athleticism from QB1. This kind of misdirection that you can do with your offensive line makes this team, to me, unbeatable. You win games in the trenches, and that's how you win games, Alex.
Jackets averaging 230 yards a game this season. That is no low number. And just Syracuse's defense has looked bleak against the run. So what has to change on that front?
Well, it starts with containing the quarterback. That's the main thing Syracuse has to do to have a prayer in this game. They didn't do a great job out of the gate last week against Pittsburgh. Let's show you the first touchdown of the game. It was a Mason Heinschel on the scramble drill, getting out of the pocket. You'll see it in a minute. Syracuse tried a little stunt there. You missed the start of the play. But he took advantage of Syracuse's really being out of position. This guy looks perplexed about that play. Look at this. 3 guys off your screen already. You have Barry Buxton, a safety, having to make an open field tackle. That left a wide open A-gap. That's an capital A-gap that Mason Heinschel just cruised on down. There was no resistance for him. The defense took bad angles. They were in man coverage on the blitz. Syracuse will have to have better gap integrity in order to stop Haynes King today. I don't know if they can do it, Alex.
There's been some troubles, but there have been some bright spots, and we'll go back to, I guess, the peak of the Syracuse season against Clemson. An angle situation. Look at Gary Bryant and how he stops the runner on 1st and goal from the 4. He curls around from the outside, and when you're really able to establish the middle of the field from that front 7, that works. The next play, we go from the inside to the outside, and look at how Brahim Long goes from the end zone to the sideline. He starts over here. Brahim Long has that speed. He established the middle. Now he's going to cut outside and get Klubnik there. So that is a huge play for the Syracuse defense. There wasn't unsportsmanlike conduct on that penalty, so they ended up not getting the advantage from it. But when Syracuse is playing the best at their front 7 and using the players behind them as well, this rush defense can be a little bit better than how they have been.
And the thing is, guys, Syracuse played well against Georgia Tech last year, limiting them to just 120 rushing yards. Haynes King had 70 of them to show his dual threat as far as the quarterback room goes. But are you guys expecting sort of a run-heavy game today, and whoever can stop the run basically has the better shot?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Georgia Tech is going to run all over this Syracuse defense. I really don't think that there's much that the Syracuse defense can do to stop this rushing attack of Georgia Tech. It's no longer the triple threat. They're running even better than they did when they were under Jeff Collins.
The only question, we had mentioned Georgia Tech has the worst rush defense in the ACC. Can SU take advantage of that?
Yasin Willis only 2 yards a pop his last however many games. I don't know.
Two of the worst rushing offenses in the country. Bottom line, Georgia Tech is good, but if Syracuse can establish the run and obviously get its QBs in order, there's a shot. We'll give our predictions and take a glance at some other games going on today. Stay with us. Wrapping up shop here on Cuse Countdown. Nico Horning alongside Alex Burstein and Jish Sokolsky. We've previewed Syracuse and Georgia Tech up to this point. Kickoff coming up here in just a few minutes. But there are some other games going around the ACC and the NCAA. But the ACC first. First off, what a game last night. Very close in Blacksburg, Virginia Tech and Cal. But what sticks out to you guys today about what's going on in the country?
Yeah, I've got my eye on Virginia taking on North Carolina. This is a Virginia team that has their eyes on making the college football playoff, don't have a conference loss yet this year, and Chandler Morris has been a Heisman hopeful the last couple of weeks.
And Bill Belichick's team's still winless.
Exactly. So, I mean, this is a very winnable game for UVA as they just keep on rolling.
And then Syracuse has the Tar Heels next week. I look at this and I see a ton of real blowouts. Maybe the SMU Wake Forest game might be close, but Louisville's going to blow out Boston College. Miami's going to blow out Stanford. Pitt, NC State, that actually could be a good game. I want to look at some of these other games around the nation, though, Nico.
That's right. Miami trying to rebound from last week's upset as well. Some other games going on around the country. There's some good ones today. Texas A&M, LSU, Michigan, rivalry against Michigan State. Ole Miss, Oklahoma should be good. There's a good slate going on.
Yeah, and college football game day is going to be in Nashville. Number 10, Vanderbilt, who would have thought, versus number 15, Missouri. Wow, number 7, Georgia Tech, number 10, Vanderbilt. We are living in different times. But I'm looking at that Houston-Arizona State game. This is an upset alert. I think the Cougars are going to take it over the Sun Devils. I just think without Jordan Tyson for Arizona State, they're going to struggle against a Houston team that's been rolling as of late.
I don't know. That Houston team's one loss came to Texas Tech. That's the same team that ASU upset last week to get into the top 10.
Texas Tech was without a starting quarterback.
I don't know.
ASU's good, though. They've cracked the rankings now,
Exactly.
24th in the country. We'll see what happens later tonight on the East Coast time. All right, before we get to our predictions, the guys had their predictions for last week's game between Syracuse and Pitt. And look at Mr. Griffin Marcy. 1 point off.
Wow.
1 point off.
I mean, it's kind of easy to predict that Pittsburgh was going to beat Syracuse last week. I think Nate Cunningham might be a little bit too pessimistic. John Baccio, 48-14. Really? You have that few? You don't have that much faith? Good shout out to Griffin, though, for making the right pick.
Very, very close. Hey, the good news is we're all undefeated so far. A lot of us are undefeated. Point differential obviously varies, but we're all in the middle of the pack. So we'll see what happens based on that, based on today's game. As far as the predictions go, what do you guys got going into today's contest, Alex?
Yeah, so we talked about this all day. This is a very good Georgia Tech offense. This is a not great Syracuse offense, and I mean, that's going to be the story of the game. 34-10 is going to be your final here. Georgia Tech stays undefeated on the season. They're not going to be able to stop Haynes King, and whether it's Luke Carney, Ricky Collins, Jakari Williams, who's ever on the field for Syracuse, no one's going to be able to get points against this GT defense.
Yeah, who remembers Jakari Williams? Listen, there's not much Syracuse can really do on the field. I'm not really a believer in divine intervention, but I think the only shot Syracuse has is prayer. I think Georgia Tech takes this one 35-12. 4 Syracuse field goals. They'll get to the red zone. They'll kick a bunch of field goals. That's my score prediction.
No touchdowns?
No touchdowns for Syracuse.
Wow. I think if the quarterbacks get involved, Ricky Collins, let's put it straight. Maybe like Carney in the future.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's playing quarterback.
I think if Collins can finally find his footing to start off with, Syracuse has a chance early on, but I think at some point you're going to find Haynes King doing what he does and what he's done all season. I'm going to go 42-13. Georgia Tech beats Syracuse. Again, I think it's relevant and close early on in the game, but then Georgia Tech can extend and take things in the second quarter or maybe even after halftime. We'll see if Syracuse can take anything from today. All right, that just about does it here on Cuse Countdown. Thanks to our producer, Dan Papillo, with Alex Burstein, Jish Sokolsky. I'm Nico Horning. Enjoy the game. Syracuse and 7th-ranked Georgia Tech coming up next. Thanks for joining us.